So good morning. Good morning, Panther fans, and I mean good morning. It is about 4:30 in the morning. As you can tell, there is no sunlight coming in the window. I even have my overhead lights doused a little bit because, well, it's early. Now, last night, Barkov got hurt while I was taking a day off, and we've known for years that if I need the Panthers to do something, I just go mow the grass and they will do something. So, yesterday, Paul Maurice mentioned that he would let us know how the surgery went. They'd be real specific. And the hours just kept rolling by and rolling on and rolling on. And I kept waiting because I had something to do. And I kept waiting to do what I needed to do for the Panthers to make their announcement so I could engage a little bit. But they would not do anything, they would not say anything. And so I decided to take action on the thing that I needed to accomplish because I knew as soon as I did that, the Panthers would make their statement. And of course, that's exactly what happened. So I proposed to Donna, and she said yes. And about 10 minutes later, the tweet came out with the news that Barkov has basically blown up his knee, both MCL and ACL, and the expected time is 7 to 9 months of being out, which of course puts us in the it puts us in purgatory, Panthers fans, because it's not just bad enough that he's injured and the timeline is 7 to 9 months, but of course, if you can do math at all, you understand that that means 7 months means he could feasibly be back beginning of the second round, beginning of the first round if he recovers a little bit quicker, or he could be back not at all because 9 months, obviously. And so the position we're going to be in, it makes logical sense anyway of what I'm about to say because we did the live stream yesterday and we talked a lot about how maybe this guy, could we get, could Crosby come, could there's any number of guys that we could get. And then I began to think about it over the course of the afternoon and into the evening. And now I don't think we're going to do much of anything. We're certainly not going to do much of anything until we know 100% for sure that he's not going to make it back for the playoffs. Don't forget, with the new LTIR rules, we have to be compliant come playoff time. And we were in a position where when Tkachuk came back, we were going to have to move Rodriguez and possibly Boquist, unless there was some other combination that we came up with. But most likely, those were the guys that we were going to have to move when Tkachuk came back to be cap compliant. Now, we're obviously in a position where we're not going to need to do that. But if we go spending all of Barkov's cap money, we'll be right back in the same spot. And you can't do that because that was the third line yesterday, included Rodriguez and Boquist. So we're in a quandary here. Now, the first thing I'll say, and this is a little bit off color, off topic, off brand, I guess you would say, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you are celebrating Barkov's injury, you're no better than, how can I put this? If you're celebrating Barkov's injury, you're not quite to the level of someone who would celebrate somebody getting shot and killed in front of their wife and kids, but you're getting there, and you might want to consider taking a break from social media. If I see anybody in this community celebrating anybody's injury, like I've seen on social media, people celebrating Barkov's injury, and it ain't just Leaf fans. I know somebody's going to say something. It's not just Leaf fans. Now, if you want to say that this opens up the East and all of that, of course, those opinions are fine. But if you're actually posting gifs and laughing about it and celebrating, do me a favor and unsubscribe now because we'll root you out and do worse things to you here. That's all I'll say about that. Now, back to the actual hockey. Bennett, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Lundell, Luosterainen, Marchand, Rodriguez, Kachuk, Samaskevich. Now, if any other team that hadn't won a couple of cups, if any other team housed that lineup, when you look at the rest of our defense and Bobrovsky, they would at worst be considered Stanley Cup contenders. Now, of course, you've got the beginnings of a somewhat of a narrative here. We've played a lot of hockey. Nosek got hurt. Kachuk got hurt. Barkov is hurt. Right? So the idea that the wheels might be coming off the bus, you can't argue against that it looks a little bit funky. But Nosek's thing, kind of like Barkov, was a freak thing in the sense that it's not like Nosek has been here for all of the runs. And so I don't really necessarily feel like playoff wear and tear is what happened with Nosek. Kachuk, we all watched him get injured, and it had nothing to do with Panthers hockey. So again, while you could build a narrative that some of these guys are getting injured because of wear and tear, the Barkov one is really the one where you watch that injury and you go, well, that was a no contact thing. And he just digs in at the exact right ergonomics. You know what I mean? He just digs that skate in the exact right way, and bing bong, both ligaments. So what I'm going to say here is that while I still am going to produce an NHL preview, I know a lot of people have already produced theirs, and over the years I've been consistently late with mine, and this year would make sense that I'd be happy that I'm late with mine, only I'm not going to change what I was going to say. The only thing I will say is that if you're a fan of another team, especially in the East, if you think this is going to make the path for the Panthers impossible, and you think, oh, this is definitely the Leafs year, or definitely the Canes year, simply because Barkov is out, you ain't been paying attention to this Panthers team. This is a special, different group of guys. Now, how can I illustrate that this is a special, different group of guys? Because Stamkos left Tampa, where ain't nobody leaving Florida. Okay? The camaraderie, the family atmosphere, the bond that this team has is different. You don't get 3, 4, 5, 6 guys at this point taking less money to stay together without a different group of guys. And I'm not knocking what Tampa did. I'm not knocking Stamkos. But Florida found a way where Tampa, and at least Stamkos, couldn't do it. So to me, that shows that there's a different thing going on here in Florida. Now, in terms of on the ice, what we talked about yesterday during the live stream still holds true, and that is, okay, Barkov is gone. Okay, he's gone. That's over for right now. But let's look at what we do have on the ice. Bennett, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, I would suggest that 85 to 90% of NHL teams would take that as their top line. There's only a select few that probably wouldn't. Now, the Lundell, Luosterainen, and Marchand line, everybody knows from last year's playoffs. Okay? Do not forget that when the Barkov-Reinhart combination was having some issues against some of the top-tier players, it was the Lundell, Luosterainen, and Marchand line that would step in and shut things down. Now, how's that going to play out with them expending the energy of being a second line instead of a third line, especially where Marchand is concerned? Well, we're going to find out. But then there is the thing that I talked about at the beginning where Kachuk comes back. And this is where it's going to get interesting in terms of how are we going to lay these lines out? Because Kachuk is theoretically not a third-line player. But, of course, Lundell and kind of Marchand aren't really theoretically third-line players either. But we can tell that pretty much under no circumstances is Paul Maurice going to break up Lundell, Lusterin, and Marchand. And I agree with that. Now, for right now, that third line is Rodriguez, Samoskevich, and Boqvist. We've seen Tkachuk. Did Tkachuk play with Samoskevich? Yeah, I believe Tkachuk, Bennett, and Samoskevich were together before Tkachuk got hurt. Not for all that long, but I do believe they've played together. So my point is this. If we're plodding along, I don't want to say cruising along, but if everything is going the way we hope it would go, when Tkachuk comes back, I do believe that if we haven't gone and gotten another center, I do believe you will see Boqvist be moved off of that third line, and the third line would be Rodriguez, Tkachuk, and Samoskevich. To me, that seems like the most logical thing to do, because if you go and get another guy, you're only going to be able to spend so much money without then having to move Rodriguez. And that was our biggest concern going into the season, was how are we going to replace Rodriguez? Because as you've seen now with him at 3C, at least for the first practice, we already know you can plug him in anywhere in the lineup and get a solid effort. He's not going to hurt you. Now, Rodriguez has been here for a couple of the runs, and he's not getting any younger. So there's areas of concern. But if Rodriguez can prove to be a valuable 3C, okay? Because let's just look at this from a defensive perspective. Because let's be honest here, okay? Barkov, his specialty is defense. No offense to Barkov, but we're not losing a 110-point player. We're not losing a guy that's given us 40 goals every year. He almost got 40 goals the 1 year. But last year, obviously, his contribution is leaning towards him shutting other people down in the defensive, running the power play, what he brings in intangibles, etc. So we're just talking about the actual on-ice product. When you look at what Rodriguez brings, the question then becomes, how close to Lundell is Rodriguez going to be? How close to the production of Lundell, Lusterin, Marchand? How close can that production of Rodriguez, Samoskevich, Tkachuk in the playoffs? Are we going to get the same type, level of effort and production out of those guys? To me, that's the question. Marchand's quicker than Tkachuk. Lundell is definitely a different, better player than Rodriguez. Samoskevich is not going to have the same defensive prowess as a Lusterin. So there's weaker spots. We're weaker than we were. There's no way around that. But there's also no way to know how Rodriguez is going to respond. There's no way to know how Samoskevich is going to respond. There's no way to know if Lusterin is going to find another level to his offensive game, which we think he found with Marchand in the playoffs. But now there will be second line minutes up against different competition. There's a lot of unanswered questions. What we do know is that if we get to the trade deadline and they know Barkov isn't coming back, and we've got some cap space, we know we trust Zito to be able to fill those holes with the appropriate people and to make it so that we've got still the best possible chance that we're going to have to three-peat. Now, one thing I said on the stream last night that I've put a little bit more thought into that really, I don't know if the team would agree with this. I don't know if the coaching staff would even view it this way. But to me, Tarasov is a key here because we're going to need better and bigger efforts from our goaltenders during the regular season. Not that anything's been bad, but what we are going to need, if you extrapolate things out, even if Barkov comes back, which is going to be a big question because even at 7 months and he's healed, he hasn't played hockey and it is throwing him out there in the second round of the playoffs. I have a feeling that as things go on and the reality of things set in, I would be lying if I said anything other than I think at some point they're going to realize he's not going to be back even for the playoffs is going to kick in. But they don't want to make that call right now. Okay, so to Tarasov. In my opinion, the way that this team is going to possibly win another cup here this year would be, yeah, there's a few more chances because Barkov's out. Yeah, there's a fewer goals because Barkov's out. We don't have the same possession numbers because Barkov's out. All of that can be made up for with one simple thing, and that is Bobrovsky refusing to allow the puck in the back of the net. And that's why I think Tarasov is so important, because if the coaches viewed it that way and said, well, maybe we need to keep Bobrovsky a little bit fresher, right? Maybe instead of 55, 60 games, 48, right? If Tarasov can give us the effort we need and give Bob 10 fewer games or so and keep him just a little bit more fresh and rested so that come playoff time, he's really on point. We have players. We have enough players on this team, special players, that can make a difference with Barkov out that they don't normally need to make when he's on the ice. Let's not undersell the guys that are left on this team. Sam Bennett is Conn Smythe. And as soon as I said that, my camera stopped working. So as I was saying, don't overlook. We've got a lot of good players, okay? We have a lot of special players that can do things that maybe when Barkov's on the ice, they don't really have to be as special because it's just one group of guys working in tandem. And that's still going to happen. But we've got a lot of players on this team. Don't forget, like I said about Bennett's Conn Smythe, Marchand might have could have won Conn Smythe. Okay? We've seen Lundell shut down top competition for a Hagee. Don't Reinhardt, Selke votes. You follow what I'm saying? So look, right now, to be honest, to put this in terms of a relationship, I kind of feel like Barkov has asked for a divorce, and the Panthers are the guy that just doesn't want to accept that I think this is ending. I think at some point, 7 to 9 months, both MCL and ACL, I believe at some point we're going to get the news that, his recovery timeline is such that we don't feel it's going to be prudent for him to come back for the playoffs. That's a big man. And so, look, that's the challenge ahead of us. That's what we've got. And I am not going to adjust my expectations for this team for this season because he's out. There are other players. We talked about this in the stream, I think the day before he got hurt, where there were some players that I felt like if we lost them, we could still win. And there were some players where I felt like we can't replace. And I don't want to name names because I don't want to jinx anybody. But let's just say on the list of guys that I felt like we could still win without is Barkov. And I know that sounds crazy. I understand that sounds crazy. But you have to understand where I'm coming from. There's a lot of new fans here. And there's certainly a lot of people who were just kind of casual until we got good. And I don't mean here in the community, our channel, but in general with Panther fans. Those of us who've been paying attention like blood the whole time since 93, this is a cup-worthy team, okay? It wasn't that long ago where we were still arguing on Twitter. I always use this example because it's true and it illustrates where we came from. But it wasn't that long ago where we were legitimately having arguments on Twitter over whether or not Seth Griffith was a viable top line winger that deserved to be up top with Barkov. Those are real discussions that really happened where there were people that were trying to justify giving Seth Griffith top line minutes next to Barkov because that's how limited our options were. So when I look at this team and I still see Bennett with Reinhardt and Verhaeghe on the top, I can't look at him and be like, well, we can't win. We can't win. We had far more hope around here as a fan base that for teams that had a lot less talent on it. So that's how I'll end this. I'm not adjusting my expectations for this team. I'm not. The coaches aren't going to do it. I can guarantee you, none of those players are walking around. Well, we can't win now. I guarantee you. Go ask Matthew. I guarantee you, Matthew Tkachuk. Like, yeah, we still winning. We can still win. What are you talking about? So that's the attitude I'm going to adopt. It is what it is, people. We'll be all right. We'll be okay. And like I said when it first happened, you win 2 cups, and maybe you start slipping in the motivation department. Maybe you get a little bit, well, hey, look, we won 2 cups, right? Kind of like we are as fans. But now, challenge accepted. Challenge accepted.